5 years ago, I was making decent money, but somehow always felt broke. My closet was full of clothes I never wore. My garage was stuffed with equipment I used maybe twice, and my bank account seemed to drain faster than I could fill it, despite earning more than most people around me. I had fallen into the trap that catches millions of people every year. The trap of believing that income determines wealth when it's actually the opposite. What you keep matters infinitely more than what you earn, and what you keep is determined almost entirely by how you think about stuff. The average American household contains over 300,000 items. 300,000. That's not a typo. And here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to admit. Most of those items were purchased with money that could have been invested, compounding quietly in the background, building actual wealth instead of collecting dust in closets and garages, and storage units that cost even more money to maintain. Minimalism isn't about deprivation or living with nothing or becoming some kind of monk who rejects all material possessions. It's about intentionality. It's about making sure that everything you own, everything you spend money on, everything you give your attention to actually adds value to your life instead of silently draining your wealth, your time, and your mental energy. Over the past 5 years, I've developed 50 rules that fundamentally changed my relationship with money, stuff, and how I spend both. These aren't theories I read in a book somewhere. They're principles I've tested in my own life, adjusted when they didn't work, and refined until they became automatic behaviors that build wealth without requiring constant willpower. You don't need to implement all 50. Pick 5 or 10 that resonate with you and actually follow through on them. That alone will put you ahead of 90% of people who consume content like this and do absolutely nothing with it. Let's start with the rules that changed everything. The first rule is simple. Never let one mistake become a pattern. Maybe you plan to track your spending and forgot for one day. Maybe you made an unnecessary purchase. Maybe you skipped an investment contribution because something unexpected happened. That's life. The danger isn't the single mistake. The danger is deciding that because you broke the plan once, the plan no longer matters. Miss one day if you have to, then get back on track. The same principle applies to budgeting, saving, investing, debt repayment, and almost every financial habit worth building. Consistency doesn't require perfection. It requires returning to the plan. The second rule is to create a daily reset. At the end of the day, spend a few minutes putting your environment back into order. Clear the desk. Put things where they belong. Deal with the dishes. Remove the obvious clutter. Why does this belong in a finance documentary? Because your environment influences your behavior. When everything around you feels chaotic, your mind has more decisions to process. And when your mind is overloaded, convenience becomes more attractive. That's when unnecessary purchases, delivery orders, online shopping, and other forms of impulse spending become easier to justify. A cleaner environment doesn't magically make someone wealthy, but reducing unnecessary friction can make better decisions easier. The third rule is to examine what you actually use. Walk through your home and ask a brutally honest question. If this disappeared tomorrow, would I genuinely miss it? You may discover that you regularly use a surprisingly small percentage of your possessions. That discovery matters because every unused item represents a previous financial decision. The money has already been spent. You can't undo it, but you can learn from it. Instead of thinking, I wasted money on this, ask, what did this purchase teach me about how I buy things? That turns clutter into information. The fourth rule is to make decluttering decisions quickly when the replacement cost is low. If something is inexpensive and easy to replace, you don't need to keep 5 backups simply because you might need one someday. Storage has a cost too. Maybe not always a bill you can see, but there's the cost of space, organization, maintenance, and mental attention. Don't turn your home into a warehouse for hypothetical future problems. The fifth rule is to keep a permanent donation or removal box. Whenever you encounter something you no longer use, put it there. Don't create another decision by returning it to the same drawer. Once the box is full, move the items out of your life. This creates a powerful feedback loop. You repeatedly see what you're getting rid of, and eventually you start becoming more selective about what enters your home in the first place. Now let's move to one of the biggest financial rules of all. Don't make purchasing effortless. Modern shopping is designed to remove hesitation. Saved payment information, one-click purchases, personalized recommendations, limited time offers, notifications telling you that something is almost sold out. All of these features reduce the time between wanting something and paying for it. Your job is to put that time back. For non-essential purchases, use a waiting period. 24 hours can be enough for smaller decisions. For expensive purchases, wait longer. Put the product on a list instead of immediately buying it. Then come back later. You'll discover something interesting. A surprising number of things you desperately wanted yesterday don't seem nearly as important today. That isn't deprivation. That's delayed decision-making. And delayed decision-making is one of the simplest defenses against impulse spending. Another useful rule is to calculate cost per use. Imagine two purchases. One costs $50 and gets used once. Another costs $200 and gets used several hundred times. The second purchase is more expensive at checkout, but it may provide dramatically more value over its lifetime. So don't ask only, how much does this cost? Ask, how much value am I realistically going to get from it? That question becomes even more important with major purchases. A car is not just a monthly payment. It's insurance, fuel, repairs, maintenance, registration, depreciation, parking, and the money that could have been invested instead. A house isn't simply its purchase price either. There can be interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, repairs, and furnishing. The sticker price is only the beginning. Then there's opportunity cost. This is one of the most important concepts in personal finance because spending money always means choosing one possibility over another. Suppose you spend $100 on something you barely need. The cost isn't simply $100. That money could have reduced a credit card balance. It could have strengthened an emergency fund. It could have been invested. It could have contributed toward a future goal. This doesn't mean every dollar must be invested. Life is meant to be lived. The point is to understand what you're giving up when you spend. That awareness changes spending from an automatic reaction into a conscious decision. And that's where experiences become important. Sometimes spending money on an experience can provide more lasting value than buying another object. A meal with people you care about, learning a skill, visiting somewhere new, taking part in an activity you'll remember. The point isn't that experiences are always better than possessions. The point is to figure out which spending actually produces value in your own life. Because people often buy things based on what they think will make them happy, only to discover later that the excitement disappears quickly. So study your own behavior. Look at your bank statements. Which purchases do you remember fondly? Which ones do you barely remember making? Which expenses repeatedly make your life better? Which ones leave you wondering where the money went? Your spending history is one of the best financial teachers you'll ever have. Next, attack recurring expenses. Subscriptions are particularly easy to ignore because the payment happens automatically. One service may cost very little, but stack several together and the total becomes significant. Review recurring charges regularly. If you haven't used something in months, ask whether you should still be paying for it. The same principle applies to shopping emails, retail apps, and promotional notifications. If you constantly receive messages encouraging you to buy something, you're giving companies repeated opportunities to influence your spending. Remove those triggers. Unsubscribe. Delete the shopping apps you don't need. Turn off unnecessary notifications. You don't have to rely entirely on self-control when you can redesign the environment around you. That leads to another powerful rule. Automate the good decisions. If you want to save, automate savings. If you want to invest, automate contributions where appropriate. If you have recurring bills, automate payments when practical. The reason is simple. Every financial decision you postpone becomes a decision you may eventually make while tired, distracted, emotional, or stressed. Automation turns a decision into a system, and systems are more reliable than motivation. Now consider what happens when your income increases. This is where lifestyle inflation quietly destroys progress. You get a raise, then you upgrade your phone, you move into a more expensive apartment, you eat out more, you start buying better versions of things you already own. Your income rises, but your financial position barely changes. The solution is to create a gap between income and lifestyle. When you earn more, don't automatically spend more. Increase your savings and investment rate first. Then decide what portion of the increase you genuinely want to enjoy. That way, higher income actually creates higher financial security. You should also learn to handle unexpected money differently. A bonus, refund, gift, or other windfall can disappear remarkably fast if you treat it as permission to increase your lifestyle. Instead, consider directing a large portion of unexpected money toward your financial goals. Because you weren't depending on that money to pay your normal bills, saving or investing it can be much easier. Now let's talk about comparison. This may be one of the most expensive habits in modern society. You see someone's car, someone else's vacation, someone's house, someone's clothes, someone else's latest technology, and suddenly your perfectly functional life feels inadequate. But you are comparing your financial reality to someone else's highlight reel. You don't know their income. You don't know their debt. You don't know what they sacrificed to afford those purchases. You don't know whether they're financially secure at all. Stop measuring your success through somebody else's consumption. Measure progress against yourself. Are your debts decreasing? Are your savings increasing? Are your investments growing? Are you becoming more intentional? Those measurements actually tell you something. And don't forget that attention itself has economic value. Your attention is limited. Every hour spent scrolling, browsing products, comparing lifestyles, or consuming advertisements is time that cannot be recovered. Protect it. Schedule periods without your phone. Create space for deep work, learning, exercise, hobbies, relationships, and simply thinking. Boredom isn't necessarily a problem. Sometimes boredom is the space where better ideas appear. And when you don't need constant stimulation, you're less likely to spend money simply because you're looking for something to do. Your physical environment matters too. Consider a one in, one out rule. When you buy something new, identify something old that can leave. If you're actively trying to reduce clutter, make the rules stricter. One new item means 2 old items leave. You don't have to follow this forever. The purpose is to create awareness. Every purchase now has a consequence. Something enters. Something else must leave. That forces you to ask whether the new purchase is actually worth it. The same intentionality should apply to food. Plan meals before shopping. Use what you already have. Buy according to the plan. This can reduce waste, impulse purchases, and expensive last-minute decisions. Financial discipline isn't about making every decision perfectly. It's about building an environment where the better decision becomes easier. And there is another rule that deserves attention. Take care of your health. Money can help create opportunities, but it cannot compensate for neglecting your physical and mental well-being. Sleep, movement, nutrition, stress management, and preventive care all matter. A strong financial plan should support a healthy life, not simply create a larger number on a spreadsheet. Finally, protect your financial foundation. You don't have to prove your generosity by destroying your own stability. Build an emergency cushion. Manage your debts. Develop your savings. Then help others from a position where helping them doesn't put your entire financial future at risk. Because financial independence isn't about becoming obsessed with money. It's about reducing the number of things money controls. Debt controls you. Constant lifestyle inflation controls you. Impulse spending controls you. Trying to impress people controls you. But when you spend intentionally, save consistently, invest patiently, and own things that genuinely add value to your life, something changes. Money starts working for you instead of constantly demanding your attention. And that is the real purpose behind all of these rules. Not owning the fewest things. Not spending the least amount of money. Not becoming someone who refuses to enjoy life. The goal is freedom. Freedom from unnecessary debt. Freedom from constant financial anxiety. Freedom to change careers. Freedom to take an opportunity. Freedom to help someone when they need it. Freedom to spend your time according to your values, instead of spending your life trying to maintain a lifestyle you never consciously chose. You don't need to transform your entire financial life tomorrow. Choose one rule. Maybe it's waiting 24 hours before an unnecessary purchase. Maybe it's canceling subscriptions. Maybe it's automating your savings. Maybe it's tracking your net worth. Maybe it's simply stopping the next unnecessary upgrade. Start with one. Repeat it until it becomes normal. Then build another habit on top of it. Because wealth rarely appears through one dramatic decision. More often, it emerges from thousands of ordinary decisions that are slightly better than the alternatives. A purchase you didn't make. A subscription you canceled. A dollar you saved. An investment you made. An upgrade you resisted. A lifestyle increase you avoided. Each one looks small in isolation. But time changes the meaning of small. The same way money can compound, habits can compound. And years from now, the difference between intentional decisions and automatic decisions can become enormous. So don't focus on changing everything. Focus on changing something. One decision today, another tomorrow. And eventually, those small decisions become the foundation of a completely different financial life.